Hello, this is Jan from Red Toad Art Studio, and today we are going to color the Toadstool stamp that we made in our last video. And if you'd like to know how to make this and how to draw it, just go back to our last video, or go ahead and download our free instruction sheet that is step-by-step tutorial on how to draw our Toadstool house. And those are free. They're on our website. So we have already drawn and inked and made our stamp shape. So what we need to do now is color it in. You can use anything you want for this. You could watercolor it. You could use colored pencils. You could use crayons. Or like I am going to do, I am going to use markers. So we probably all will have different colors of markers hanging around. In fact, I used 2 or 3 different kind of markers today because some of the colors I wanted in one set were getting empty. So I've gone through more than one set. Basically, your Sharpies will do just fine. Or if you want to order online or go to your art store, I have found that Cali art markers, they have lasted me wonderful, and they have a fine tip on one end and a big wide tip on the other, and they last and last and last. They're not expensive. You do buy them in like sets of 100 or 150, so you will pay a little more at the outset than maybe if you just go buy these in small sets. But I don't really think they're any more expensive, as expensive as your Sharpies. And they work great if you want to get online. Now, there are a lot of sets of markers out there, and you're free to check out any of those you want. Some of them are very expensive, and if you can afford those, hey, go for it. But we don't really need those for our projects, so any markers you have, all right? I have a red I'm using, a green for the grass, and a red for the parts of the toadstool. And you know, it's going to vary. I have a little bit of a gray here. I had to go to a gray with my Cali art for this cement step or rock step. You don't have to do it gray. Yellow, this is for in the windows, but you could also use what I'm going to show you here, a little bit of chalk for the yellow. I'm not sure what color this is. It's this color right here. As you've noticed, Sharpie doesn't name their colors. A brown, let's see, and a tan. And I had some blue in mine. But you can do these any way you want. Just use the colors you have on hand. And as I said earlier, or maybe in the last video, I don't remember, I'm going to do this one a little bit different than that one so I can see the difference. So, I like to start out with my red. And since these little frames are fairly small, I do like to use this ultra fine point Sharpie. Now for bigger spots, I like to use just the fine point. You use whatever you have. But I am going to go ahead and going to color in these frames red. Going to do the door frame now. All right. Now, let's see, we need to decide. I think I'm going to make all of this part of my top red and put white dots this time. So this will need to be red, and then I think here I will do a white top with red dots. So I'm going to color in these dots. It's fun to try different things and see what you like. This is so easy. You can do several till you get exactly like what you love. Now, for this area, I'm going to use my thicker marker. If you have one, that makes it a little quicker. Okay, there is a secret to using markers. Have you noticed that it's hard to get a nice solid color without streaks and places that are darker and lighter? The best way to do bigger areas is in tiny little circles or ovals. And you don't have the same streaks. Now, when I go along an edge like that, I do kind of have to do a straight line. But fill with tiny little circles, and it will give you a nice, solid background. It won't look like a kindergartner did it. When I first picked up markers and tried to learn how to do them, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to not make them look streaky. So this is the secret that I found. Over it with tiny little circles or ovals. It will give it a nice, solid, velvety background. Because when you go over this, especially if you're doing something like this, you'll go over a spot several times, and it'll get a streak that's darker, and you'll have lighter streaks. We take advantage of that in our shadowing, and I'll show you that in a minute. Another secret is try to follow your wet line. As that's damp, just keep coloring along that damp, wet line as much as you can, and just keep going on that. Instead of hopping around, don't go like from here now and go here, or from here and go here. Stay with the line you're coloring, and it helps bring that ink down in a nice, solid fashion. The more you do markers, the better you can do, but try your best to make nice, solid colors that aren't streaky. And as I said, that takes some practice. But it's possible. I'm following my wet line over here now. Can't follow all the lines usually, but you just do it as much as you can. I went outside my line a little bit. These fatter markers, it's a little easier to kind of get outside the line that you want to be in. There we are. Notice how nice and solidly colored my red is. Now here's where we can take advantage of the fact that if you do another layer, another coat of this red, it will be a little darker. This is an easy way to get some shadowing in. Now it's not dark shadowing in, but for the sake of what we're doing here, it's enough shadowing in. Now if you have a huge set of markers, you probably would have a darker red you could come in and make a shadow with. But if you're like, if you've got sets of Sharpies, you won't have that probably. So just use the same one. Kind of think about where you want the shadows. We're going to put shadows on this side of our picture. And do a second coat. And if you notice, it will be a little bit darker than just where one coat was. You can even put 3 coats on if you want. Let that dry a few seconds and come and put the 3rd coat on. And you will get a darker area for your shadowing. Alright, see, we had a little bit of shadowing showing there. It's not a lot, but it will give you some effect of a shadow. And just kind of feel for how far you want to bring that over, how you like the looks of it. There, I think that's enough. We got a little bit of darkness. Now, I did this part, the body of my toadstool, kind of a light brown color, and this is a Sharpie color. I wish they had names on these so I could say I use such and such a color. But unfortunately, I've never seen names on the pens. And if it was on the package, unfortunately, that's long gone. Now we want to be sure we do the same thing here, where we work with a lot of little circles or ovals. We want the body of our toadstool to be nice and solidly colored. I think when you see someone do this, it looks like they're doing a lot of straight lines, but I'm actually doing a lot of circular movement. I do straight lines along the edges, but not in the centers and in the middle of these shapes. And notice I'm trying to follow my wet line down. Okay, now let's go up and do the stem part of our toadstool up here. Now, we can do a little bit of shadow effect. I don't know if you can see it on this one. See how we had a little bit of shadow effect? By putting a second layer on where we want the shadow. Again, if you had a darker brown that was just a shade darker, you could use that. And if you have a big set of markers, you probably will have that. That's why the big sets of markers people like, because you can do a lot of shadowing and highlighting because you have colors that are just steps away from each other. Now, because this is circular, I like to make my shadow kind of come in a circle, around and in a circle. It's not really a circle, but we get kind of that circular shape here. This is very subtle. This won't be dark shadowing, and if you like dark shadows, you will need to use something else. But for me, this is plenty for these projects. It's just this light, subtle shadowing, and it does make a difference. And let's put a little shadow up here. Alrighty. Okay. Let's see. What should we do next? This is a color, I do not know what to call it. It's a Sharpie color. And it's really not exactly what I would prefer here. A brown would be nice. A darker brown would be nice. And I do have a skinny darker brown. Which do I want to use? Because this is not too different than the red. Think I'll use my darker brown. Hope I don't regret that. Let's see what this will do, because it should be a very shadowed area. And I don't have a thicker brown marker. It's this really fine point. But with patience, it'll work, right? Hopefully. Okay, and the same for these. When you're filling big areas in, it's best to work in little circles. But it takes a while with these very fine tip markers. It takes a lot of patience. But hey, we should enjoy the journey with our art. Why do it if we don't enjoy the actual doing of it? Enjoy, relax, take your time to do a good job. You'll be so much more happy with what you've done. All right, now I think I will do my door that dark brown too. I like to use every color, if possible, more than once. It kind of ties the picture together. If it can be used at least 2 times, maybe 3 times somewhere in the picture. So we'll have our brown at least twice. Now this dark brown kind of covers up my wood look. But I don't have a good alternative in the Sharpie set. It's a nice dark brown, but it is the dark brown. Alright, hey, I'm liking this. Now I need to figure this out. I made these blue here, and I think I may stick with the blue. It kind of brightens up the whole picture. An earlier toadstool I used a good turquoise color, which is really pretty there. But I don't have a good turquoise in our Sharpie. There may be some out there. I just don't happen to have one, so I'm going to use blue instead, so that you can see what that'll look like, because you may not have a good one either. Now, when choosing colors, you need to think contrast. This blue contrasted good with what I had here. It's not contrasting as good here, and I should have thought about that. Now, as I'm doing it, it's too late. I think, a bright lime green might have looked neat there. That would really have contrasted with that brown. So think about that when you're choosing colors. How well does this show up against the other colors? This is going to work, and I think I'll use that bright lime green to contrast against this blue. We'll see what happens. You know how much, a lot of art is just experimenting and seeing what will happen. And then you get settled on something and you make another one with all of your fixes in it, and you'll have a beautiful picture. Maybe. Now we can add a little shadow on these blue things, whatever they are. There's a word for them, I'm sure, in Toadstool World. By going over it again, just like we did with other colors, we can get a little darker up here in the edges where it would be underneath the toadstool roof. And it will help set it off just a tiny bit. In fact, you don't even notice these shadows there. One, we're used to seeing shadows, and they're so subtle. But they do make a difference. If they're not there, there is more of a flat look to your picture. All right. Shall we see what a lime green will look like there? Maybe I should say this as a neon green. When I try a new color, I want to try it out on a scrap piece of paper. And this is exactly what I wanted. This is another Sharpie. Now my tip is in bad shape. I've used this one a lot. But I'm going to try real hard to get that in here. And for contrast, this definitely contrasted good. Now, I think it probably would have been better if I'd have done a lime green on the outside of these, and then the blue where I'm doing this lime green. Just done them the opposite, but you know, this is good enough. There we go. So that'll be one green, and we'll have another green down here, although a little darker green. While we're speaking of greens, let's go ahead and put our grass green in. We're almost done. See, this one does not take long at all. Now, if you're going to put your background in with either colored pencil or marker, that's going to take you a while, but I'm going to show you a quicker way and an easy way to make beautiful backgrounds. Okay, let's do our windows, a nice yellow. a homey yellow, like it's evening and the lights are on inside and supper's cooking, or dinner, whatever you call your evening meal. Your work is done for the day. A nice, cozy, snuggly place. Maybe the fireplace is up and going. And we do have a chimney, right? My toadstool up here just doesn't look quite right with just a white top, does it? And we also need to put the brown shadow under there. So let's get the brown shadow. When in doubt, when you're not sure how to do something, if there's a part of it you know what you want to do, like I know I want this shadow, do that first. And maybe it'll help you figure out what to do with the rest of it. There we go. I like that, except I'm not happy with that top. Anyway, what should we do our doorknob and hinges? Now, I did them in dark blue, or in blue on this one, but it didn't contrast. Remember, we spoke about contrast with that brown. So, what do you think I could use there? I'm guessing I need to use the yellow again, or maybe an orange. Would an orange work there? Hey, let's try orange. It's our Toadstool house after all, and it wants to be a bright, happy house. Now, if you have some metallic markers, you could do this in gold or silver or bronze. Wouldn't that look neat? But you know, orange is going to work just fine here. And it shows up well against the brown. There we go. Now, I do need to decide what this 5 cents is going to be, and maybe so I can make another spot for orange, I'll do the 5 cents in that color. I do also know I want a light gray here, like it's a sidewalk coming out of the door. Now I'm using a Cali Art gray for this because I don't have a light gray Sharpie. You know, I don't like that white right now, but maybe when I get the background color in, I might like it. So I think I'm going to do the background next. Now what you could do to make your background is get your bright old yellow Sharpie and just start in and cover it all. Now unfortunately, this is green. I don't have my yellow here because my yellow is dry. I don't have a good yellow. Now, I do have a good yellow Cali Art, but I think I want to show you another method that I really like. I like this in coloring books. If you've colored a picture, but there's a big sky or background, I love this method. So let me get it out here. Do you have any chalks? They're called blending chalks. Or, let me show you this. If you have children, you may have sidewalk chalk. Now, sidewalk chalk is much harder to use. It's a harder chalk than blending chalks. But what you do is take a knife and scrape a little bit of this off in a little pile. Get a Q-tip, and you can rub it right on. Now, they won't be as intense as our blending chalk. This background was done with a yellow blending chalk. And they're not near as messy as you think they would be. They're not messy at all. And I just love using chalks. And if you can find... Anyway, if you have chalk pastels, That's chalky, and you can just take a stick of a pastel, rub a Q-tip on it, and transfer it right over. And I'll be honest, I have some, but I don't know where they walked off to. But you can use, remember, you can use sidewalk chalk, pastels, or if you've been a scrapbooker in the past, you probably have some of these blending chalks. They're all chalks. The advantage to these is that they're softer and a little easier to use, but they all seem to work. So, I want to do a yellow background, and I have a yellow over here, but I can't quite, maybe I can get it in like this. There's my yellow. Just dip the end of your Q-tip in that powdery part and come in here and just do circular motions again and start rubbing the chalk in. Try your best not to go over the other parts where you have used marker, but if it's a light yellow like this, it doesn't seem to bother if you do. And if you're using colored pencils, I found that the wax in my Prismacolors resists this chalk. You can almost go over it on the edges without a problem. So chalk sounds like it'd be hard to use and messy to use, but it's not. And it's very easy and it's very quick. And I love this method to do backgrounds. You can also like blend colors in and get different sky effects or background effects, like a mottled effect, that are very pretty. Now I'm not really planning on putting a covering on this or something over this to protect it, but you could Mod Podge it or spray it with a spray varnish, and then it would protect the chalk that you're putting on here, and it wouldn't rub off on any other things, which might not be a bad idea depending on what you want to do with it. The spray acrylic's the easiest, but it's the stinkiest. Mod Podge might be a good way to go. But all of that is entirely up to you. This is your toadstool. That was a fast and easy way to do a background. So, I have to decide. I think I'm just going to leave the white. If you got chalk on your white, you can get a little bit of that off with your eraser, which is handy. So I'm just going to go along there and clean up my white edge. Now, we haven't signed it yet. We probably really should have signed it before we put chalk there, but let's see if we can still do it. Ah, it's doing just fine. There we go. Clean off your pen nib a little bit after you've gone over that chalk on a piece of paper. There we go. We have finished our Toadstool House stamp. Now, I have two of them. And I'm not sure which one I like the best. I like them both. Well, I hope you have enjoyed making these toadstool houses, and I hope you'll be back with us for our next video. We're going to have several different things coming up. Some things for, well, just several different things. I won't give it away right now. So, I am going to say bye for now, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.